Okay, so this is me, Fazil Felfelian. I did the Vancouver Sun Run on April 16th, the morning of April 16th. This is my race bib, 3712. If you go to Vancouver Sun Run results and search this number, you can see my results. We'll go over the results right here in this video. So yeah, let's get started. Yeah. Okay, so this is the Vancouver Sun Run. The start line is over there. It's 8:15 in the morning. The race is going to start in 45 minutes. This will be a practice run for me to see what the challenges will be, what I can learn for the marathon in 3 weeks time. My goal for today's race is 45 minutes. Let's see how fast I can get to that goal. My fastest time for a 10K has been 47:54 on a treadmill, so this is uncharted territory for me. But it's going to be a good race. I have a good feeling about this. A lot of caffeine and a few Advils to take me the race distance.
What were we saying?
Let's get started.
Let's get started. How was this race that you did, Faz?
It was a good race. I did a personal best for my 5 kilometer and 10 kilometer splits. The total time of 48:17. My fastest ever 10 kilometer was on a treadmill beforehand at a 47-minute 40 something, but high 47s. So to be able to achieve a 48, a low 48 on the road, it was a big achievement for me. My 5 kilometer split was 22:57. Again, previously my best 5 kilometer split was on a treadmill at a 22:48, so only 9 seconds slower, but being on the road, which is much more difficult in the rain and in the cold. So given the conditions, I did a personal best for my 5 kilometer, which means at a 22:57 I did a 4 minutes 35 seconds per kilometer for 5 kilometers average. And then for my second 5 kilometers it was a 25:20, meaning an average of 5 minutes and 4 seconds per kilometer. Over the 10 kilometer distance, my average pace was 4 minutes and 49 seconds per kilometer. Being under the 5 minutes per kilometer threshold for 10 kilometers is something that I want to maintain for the marathon in 2 weeks time. And yeah, that's the goal. I'm training to get to that position, to maintain a 5 minutes per kilometer for a race distance of 42.2 kilometers.
So before the run even started, give me some information, like how did it feel? What did you even do prior to going and showing up in downtown?
So at 4:30 in the morning I woke up, had a small piece of fish and 2 eggs and a cup of coffee. And then that was everything I had. I stopped eating from that point forward. By the time I got to downtown Vancouver for the race, it was 7:45. That's when I drank my 2.5 scoops of pre-workouts with a little bit of water. And then I was on the start line at 8:30, and at 8:45 I got the feeling to go pee, but there was no way of being able to go and come back before the race start. So I made the decision to just go through the race with it. Through the race, that started to become an issue because I started to feel really heavy, especially at the beginning when I was in the full sprint mode. So yeah, so that was the beginning stages of the race.
So the race started, you were feeling like you need to relieve your bladder, but obviously this was becoming a problem because you were amidst running and you couldn't take time off to like take a piss. Yeah. So
I ignored that fact, and I started to notice this guy coming up beside me. He was wearing like a a black cap, and he was just sprinting. He was going at the same speed as me. And I felt that it was a good fast pace. So I just tried to keep behind him. I was 2 steps behind him, keeping him as my pacer and just following him footstep by footstep. I kept up with him to 2.5-3 kilometers, and then that's when we got to the Burrard Bridge, and that's when he dropped me and I had to take a 10-second break. And after that 10-second break, I told myself that I can't be, just walking at this pace because it's gonna really hurt my time, and I got back to jogging. I jogged all the way to past the Burrard Bridge and into the Granville Island area. At which point I got back into the running pace and I maintained that to the end.
So for those of us who don't know where Burrard Bridge is, how far away from the race start was Burrard Bridge?
Burrard Bridge is 4 kilometers from the start line.
And then you took like a 10-second break and then you went ahead all the way to Granville Island. How far is Granville Island from?
Granville Island, I think it was at the 6.5 kilometer mark.
So you did another 2.5 kilometer, and then what happened?
And then I went back to maintaining my pace, which was 5 minutes and 4 seconds per kilometer, which is my comfortable fast pace. It's not my maximum threshold. My maximum threshold is definitely 4 minutes per kilometer. So to be able to do 4:35 for the first 5 kilometers, I was good. So after I exhausted most of my energy and that pre-workout, I settled down into a 5 minute per kilometer pace.
What is that in terms of a marathon? Is that something you can keep up for a period of an entire marathon?
I'm not sure. I'm training for a 5 minute per kilometer for a race distance marathon, but it's definitely a challenge. A 5 minutes per kilometer entails just jogging, maybe a little bit of running / sprinting on the downhills, but definitely no walking, no water breaks, no messing about. So it's definitely a tough challenge.
Were you like overwhelmed by the race distance?
No.
No?
10 kilometers is something that I had prepared myself mentally, physically, and it was the only thing that caught me off guard was being in the areas I wasn't familiar with. So right after the Burrard Bridge and between Burrard Bridge and Granville Island, I wasn't too familiar with the area because it was using back streets. So it was a little bit hard to visualize the next checkpoint for myself. That played into the head game a little bit because I told myself, whoa, I can't visualize it. Maybe I don't see myself running to that checkpoint that I had set for myself. So for the marathon race distance, I definitely have to go and see the course beforehand, maybe run it a couple of times, just so I can set those mental checkpoints for myself.
So you feel like that having that mental checkpoint really helped? Like knowing, okay, I gotta make it to the next like stoplight, and then just keeping the tunnel focusing on that, right? There's actually an Andrew Huberman episode on like setting goals and how you have to visualize it. Sometimes literally, just so you know where you're headed. And if tunnel visioning on that, a lot of marathon ultra distance runners do that actually.
The last thing was my watch. I was wearing a Casio G-Shock Move. I started the GPS tracking on the start line. The overall time for it was 48:23, so the time-wise it was recording perfectly fine. The problem was that the GPS was off. When I finished the 10 kilometers and hit stop on the watch, it recorded 7 kilometers and 350 meters. So that definitely played into the mental head game as well, because every time I looked at my watch, it would say something along the lines of 5 minutes 45 seconds per kilometer, a minute and a half slower than what I was actually doing. So in my mind, I was thinking to myself, oh, if this is going to be a 55 minute, maybe 2 minutes. If this is going to be a 55 minute, maybe an hour, 10 kilometer, why should I push that last 1%? Maybe why should I push that last 3%? So that last 1 to 3% would have meant the difference between my 48:17 and maybe a 46, a mid 46 minute 10K, which was definitely in the basket. Had the watch been fine, had I gone to the bathroom before the race, and yeah.
Well, that's great because now you have those as points to go off of experience added for the next one.
And the Vancouver Sun Run was definitely a practice run, so everything that I learned here I just have to multiply it by 4 and multiply the lessons and the consequences also by 4. So there's definitely no margin for error coming in 2-3 weeks. So yeah, definitely lessons learned and much to improve on.
Oh yeah. How did you think that the cutting played into your run? Because you've been cutting for some time beforehand. Did that help or not?
I don't think the cutting necessarily helped. The only thing that I would say that helped was taking time off from running and letting my muscles recover. I would say that in the week leading up to the Vancouver Sun Run, I only did a few 1 to 3 milers every other day. So definitely not anything high intensity, just so I can let the muscles recover, let my ankles be good. So yeah, that was the biggest thing. The cutting, it didn't make that much of a drastic difference. I went from 78 kilos to 76 kilos race day. So not that big of a difference, especially for someone like me, racing at my level. Definitely if I was competing for the top 1% of athleticism, that would make a difference, but at my level I don't think it made a difference.
Would you say it was offset by the amount of fluids you were retaining before that?
I wasn't retaining any fluids. The most amount of fluids I took in before the race was a cup and a half of water. Or 2 cups of water. So definitely nothing major, and most of that was sweated out within the first 5 kilometers. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Alright, thank you. We'll catch you again before your marathon. We'll do the preparation episode for that.
Sounds good. See you.
Bye.